Testing, testing, 1, 2. Okay. Thank you for welcoming me, Bernie Sanders, the independent, no. Democratic Senator from Vermont to the Democratic Con 2016. You say you want a political revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world. I spoke with my superdelegates, and what they care about is the podcast revolution. And I want the billionaires on Wall Street to put a few words with Eric Santamaria in the top 0.1% of podcasts. So on America's birthday, I wish you all a huge, happy Independence Day resurgence. And I hope you all feel the burn, but not when you pee. Thank you.
Who better to have on A Few Words with Eric Santamaria on America's birthday than the American psycho, Alex Payne? What's more American than growing up blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and surrounded by corn in the Midwest? I've known this kid for a long time, and I say kid because it's amazing how young he still is, but he's been wrestling for quite a while. You may remember him wrestling in Ring of Honor and various independent wrestling organizations, primarily in the Northeast, but also Pro Wrestling Respect when we ran those shows in New Jersey. He was on the Wrestling Roundtable show many times. I think he was also the first interview I did on Wrestling Roundtable Radio, too. We're going to talk about how he got into pro wrestling as a fan, some of the big names that he trained under, and much more. But before we begin, in a couple days, it's going to be 1 month since we started, and the feedback's been great so far, but I want more. Please give us a good review on iTunes, subscribe on SoundCloud, follow on Twitter at A Few Words with ES, give us a like on Facebook, send an email to afwpod@gmail.com. I've got a lot of plans for this show, a lot of big things too. And if you like it, you support it, then keep sharing, keep rating, keep subscribing, keep writing in. I want to hear your words as well. So let's not trip over any more of them. Let's have a few words with the American psycho, Alex Payne. What the hell are you doing texting me at 5 in the morning?
You were the one texting me at 12 o'clock in the morning telling me that the match was uploaded.
Yeah, but you text me at 5 in the morning. Don't you know?
Where you fall asleep, other people get up and actually have a job.
I was asleep already, despite what you may think.
All right,
and I was trying to sleep, and then and I'm like, what the? What are you doing up? Were you working?
When I fall asleep at 10 o'clock at night and you respond to me in the middle of the night, I see something when my alarm goes off. Oh, Eric happens to be texting me, let me know my match is up. I'll respond, thank you, and then that's about it.
Well, as the audience can already hear, you and I have a unique rapport, a unique relationship. I know you as Justin. You wrestle as Alex Payne, so I'll keep referring to you as Alex Payne to keep the kayfabe. But, geez, you just told me that yesterday, was your 10th anniversary as a wrestler?
That's correct.
So how's it been 10 years? You feeling it at this point?
You know, I remember this had to be sometime about 10 years ago when I was doing like little seminars in the Midwest, and there was a guy back out there named Mike Shard. He was saying like after 5 years, he's like 23 at the time, his body was feeling it after doing so many matches, and surprisingly enough, after 10 years, I don't feel beat up or crippled up or wanting to necessarily hang up a towel or anything. But my days were definitely a little tough to get through once in a while. Like let's call a spade a spade. 10 years of bumping on your back, and you go to sit on the floor to watch television with your girlfriend at home, or you're playing with your little cousins. All of a sudden, you go to get up, and your leg's asleep. And it's not even like you fell asleep when you're getting older. It's more so a matter of it takes me about 2 minutes to get moving, or my leg to stop falling asleep, or stop feeling numb, for that matter. So I get it.
So is it knees, back, all the usual places we hear about?
My knees aren't that bad.
Neck?
My neck isn't terrible. The majority of my pain, if there's any, does stem from like my lower body, more so my sciatic area. Almost
Face me, you're killing me with this mic.
The piriformis area. That seems to be the biggest subject. Or if I'm sleeping, for instance, and my hands are behind my head, I'm just trying to relax. All of a sudden, my shoulders go numb from the tops down to my fingers. So that's kind of an awkward thing to do. Or you're trying to get relaxed, and all of a sudden you feel like your legs are just are cramping up. Like this bumping on canvas, steel, and wood for 10 years, it's going to impact your body no matter what way you look at it. You just got to either learn to accept it, or you have to learn to understand, like, hey, you're going to be doing this for any longer, more stuff's going to happen to you.
I asked Delirious, it was recently, within maybe the last year, because at this point he's been wrestling, I don't know.
He's got to be going on 15, 16
17 years maybe
17 years,
even.
yeah.
But he does a lot more, let's say, high flying stuff than you do per se.
Yeah.
And I also know he's into this sort of stuff. So I asked him how his body was feeling, and he said that he was feeling pretty good, which at this point, with this much impact and this much wrestling, you wouldn't expect. But he's also really into yoga and stretching and things like that. Do you do that to help with your aches and pains?
That I've incorporated a lot more of as time has progressed. Not for nothing, when I first started, wrestling training, for instance, I didn't know a whole lot about how significant stretching would be good for your body, or even I was still somewhat a novice to weight training at the time. Granted, I've been like lifting since I was 13 years old, but there are a lot of little things that I didn't necessarily understand, and much of it when you're an 18-year-old kid, you got to look at it as you think you're invincible the entire time. Like, oh, my knees are never going to bother me. My back's going to be perfectly fine. I'm not going to be that guy. Okay, asshole. Like you're eventually shit's gonna catch up to you. But as long as you take care of yourself well, and you think about like how your body wants to perform for not just through your 20s to your 30s, but going forward 30s beyond, your body needs a stretch. Your body needs to relax. There's so much tension, and there's so much compressing that's going on with your body, or knots that are happening in your muscles, whether it's from weight training itself, or whether it's from wrestling. You got a foam roll, you have to stretch. I know Delirious, when he is the trainer at the ROH Wrestling Academy, he opened up with more yoga stretching for everybody to really warm everybody up.
Right. All right. So I guess you have nothing more to say on there. But you had mentioned when you were 13, 14 or whatever. Let's go back to that. You grew up in where in Iowa? Des Moines?
Des Moines, Iowa.
How is it being a child of the corn? We always goof on you for growing up in Iowa.
I wasn't anything out of the ordinary like anyone out here in New Jersey would live, to some degree. I granted there wasn't a large city like New York in the shadows, or you had Philadelphia in the way. But as far as Iowa goes, I lived in Des Moines. It's average. It's average. You didn't have an ocean in front of you. You had, yes, cornfields surrounding you, and people would make fun of you for that when you come out from there. What do you do in Iowa? Do you cow tip? Do you shuck corn? No, that's not what we do.
You wrestle.
We wrestle. And that is actually one of the things that I did do. Granted, like wrestling for me started very, very young in terms of me being exposed to it. I had to be really, really young. There's footage of me sitting in front of the TV in my rocking chair as a kid watching WWF wrestling, and you could hear Ultimate Warrior's promo in the background. I'm just kind of rocking around, and so like it's
like
been
he was
well, like him, of course. But needless to say, it's just like any other average American child that who grew up in the United States itself. I was privileged enough to to have, a working parent or working parents at the time, having a sibling and whatnot, but still, like, I think we all have those sorts of things. I was early exposed to professional wrestling.
How?
Through my father. He would sit me down and we'd watch wrestling together, whether it was Friday, Saturday, Sundays, watching pay-per-views, WrestleManias. I still remember pulling out boxes of VHS tapes and watching repeatedly WrestleMania 6 to nauseum almost.
Good choice.
It's my favorite WrestleMania, but I'm sure when my parents probably thought, why is he watching this again? Like, my grandfather was like, he brings this videotape over all the time. Like, I'm sure they were like, why do we keep watching this? Or it was SummerSlam 91. These significant events that happened to like mold much of what I love about professional wrestling. And again, wrestling was always a thing. I remember having my action figures. I had 20, 30 of the old short 4-inch wrestling figures, the whole the wrestling ring, the belts, the collectibles, the posters of Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior over my bedroom.
The figures, were these the hard plastic ones that had like 1 or 2 motions that they could do?
When Hulk Hogan was stuck in one position, like either body slam position or a bear hug position, or Ultimate Warrior, you had to press that awkward knob on the back of his neck, which looked like a tumor.
And that was the shoulder tackle, quote unquote.
That was shoulder tackle Ultimate Warrior. It wasn't the cool Ultimate Warrior that either had the fists balled up or the hands out. He could do the warrior press. So like that was, I always wanted that one, to be honest with you. I never got that action figure.
I might be able to dig it out of storage for you.
You have that one?
I might.
The white trunks?
Well, yeah, there were a couple series. I think the first one was in 1990.
Okay.
Because it had Rick Rude and Andre the Giant and Akeem in it.
Okay.
And then the next year were the alternate Hogan with the bear hug, like you said, which is also his pose, and I think Road Warriors later on, and this and that. Because I think that went on through maybe even into '93. Because I think it was the last line had Kamala and Virgil and all the goofs on the Raw and the Manhattan Center time frame. So it was a few years, and those were a lot of fun.
I enjoyed them. I remember significantly trying to go out and collect them, even probably into 94 or 95. I saw something like the KB Toys, which I know that doesn't exist around here or anywhere anymore.
There was a KB Toys around here.
But I'm saying, like, you can't find a KB Toys, and most kids these days don't know what a KB Toys is, for that matter.
I think KB Toys, if you find it now, will be next to a Bradley's or other sort of stores like that don't exist. Maybe
a Venture that no longer exists
Blockbuster
either.
Video.
Why don't we make a list of all the businesses that went out of business within probably the last 10, 15 years that were staples of probably your childhood and my childhood, for that matter.
I miss Funkoland. Funkoland was great.
Yes, it was.
So that got you into wrestling as a kid. Did you wrestle in high school?
Not high school. I remember at the age of 8, I was in 3rd grade. I remember seeing posters for junior wrestling.
Rey Mysterio Jr.?
Yes, we all got masks. And this was freestyle wrestling. And I remember a couple kids that were in a couple of grades younger than me wrestling. And I remember this kid, Nick. And I guess his father got him into all these sports or whatnot. And for a couple of years, I saw him around, and I saw him carrying his wrestling trophies around. And I was jealous.
Well, every kid that grew up a Hulk Hogan, wrestling, Sting fan, whatever. I think when they hear wrestling in high school, you're imagining walking out with the cape and a mask and wrist tape.
Where's my face paint? Where's my tearaway shirt? Like that's what I want to do. But I really genuinely wanted to wrestle. I wanted to see what I could do, what the difference really was. And I know I watched it on public television. You could watch all the Iowa State tournaments, or you could watch Iowa versus Iowa State or Iowa versus Penn State. All those matches take place. So I was interested, and I remember like my mom, her brothers wrestled. My dad claimed he wrestled. All these little things. So therefore, I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I want to do this, but I didn't know how to get involved. And ever since I was in 3rd grade, I was asking, like, Dad, can I wrestle? Mom, can I wrestle? I want to try it out. I want to beat some people up, essentially, without getting suspended. So it was 5th grade, and I decided I was sick going into the season, not for nothing. I had pneumonia or something, and I asked my mom and asked my dad. I go, please sign me up. I really, really, really want to join. So we went out to the mall, and they were doing signups there. So I met the coach. His name was Kevin. Really cool guy. Like he saw me when I signed up, the usual, as anyone's like, oh, congratulations, great to meet you. You're a tall kid. You know, I don't know, you might want to do basketball instead. I'm like, I want to wrestle. Honestly, basketball I enjoy by all means, but I want to wrestle. He's like, well, we'll see how you do. He was super friendly, and my mom thought he was a good coach too overall when I started training. I remember even like the first couple of practices I was like sick for, so it really agitated me a lot, so I wasn't able to like go to a full practice. Then finally I would go through the whole practice itself. Eventually, about a month into active training, we had our very first tournament, and I remember placing poorly in my very first tournament, which is extremely frustrating, especially when you've begged and pleaded to your parents, like, I want to wrestle so bad and I want to do something. And the biggest problem I had with it, and to give you a little bit of back history on my frustration, is my dad was really the most supportive. He was taking me to all these tournaments, and he was going to practice, and he was bored during the entire time. So that made it very frustrating for me. And
he just wasn't into it at all.
Like I wanted to be in, I want to be out, I don't want to be here that long. It's like, well, shit, weigh-ins at 6 a.m. What can I do? We signed up for this. Grow the fuck up. Like, this is what I want to do. Support your kid. Just because you never had the quote-unquote support to do anything with your life, with your folks potentially, though that's a whole other topic that we can get to on another day. He just wasn't there. Like he was like, he'd be in the stands. He's like, okay, like, when's your match? I want to get done.
But he wasn't like, that's my boy.
No,
cheering you on.
God, arms were crossed. Didn't necessarily have any emotion about it, or you might say a couple encouraging words, but it wasn't really all that encouraging, really. Nor was he like someone after practice, like coach was saying, we gotta work on these little things. Let's work on those things. Like, he was never that sort of father. Mm-hmm. So I remember losing and getting my freaking fourth place trophy, and being like, oh, I got a trophy. Like, it might as well be the participation trophy as far as this goes.
Right. That's the modern day version. Like, everybody gets a trophy sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, granted, there was a first, second, third, fourth place, but they're all 4-man brackets for that matter. That was motivation. That was extreme motivation to move on from there. And shortly after that, my dad signed me up for a dual meet. The opposing high school's junior team. And I was hell-bent on this. Like, I had to win. Like, I didn't care. I had supposed to have 2 matches that night. The first match forfeited. So I only had 1 after all. So I'm like, okay, I got to win. But I'm like, but that's nothing. I need to actually win. My mom was there, though, this time. And this is my first time my mom had seen me wrestle, because she couldn't go to my practices. She worked as a nurse. So she worked evenings. So she would never be able to see me like doing what I was doing. So that evening, I remember getting on the mat, and I was super focused. Like, I was a headhunter. I just wanted to like beat this kid so bad. I ended up winning like 6 points to 2, if I'm correct. Game on. It was just completely game on. I made sure the kid couldn't pick up if he was trying to get up or reverse. I'd take him back down. Got really close to some pins, got good back points, got to the point where the kid was so frustrated that after we went through all 3 periods, he cried afterwards. So I felt bad, because I understand feeling disappointment in front of like your folks. But I remember shaking his hand and telling him good job still. And I remember just being so happy and elated that like my mom got to see me win. I won in front of my dad, trying to earn his respect, I guess. But that's kind of that started my love for the legit sport of wrestling itself.
The foundation
of wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I will say this to anybody who gets into professional wrestling: I think you should spend a year or 2, for that matter, really understanding the foundation. Because if you do not understand like how to mechanically get around or maneuver, even like when you're learning chain wrestling as a professional wrestler, it helps so much. You feel smoother as you get into things, or when you're doing takedowns, or you understand like the logic behind like why you are trying to win that match, because this is supposed to be a sport.
I always felt watching MMA, especially, but also when I got into grappling as well, that you could tell who wrestled and who couldn't, because they had a very specific kind of explosiveness to them. They were very smooth in their changing levels, especially when you get a wrestler on top of you. Boy, do they put the pressure on. And we've seen so much as MMA has evolved that a lot of the guys who really excel have a wrestling base.
It helps.
So would you say, I guess, the modern form of grappling, this amalgamation or combination of some jujitsu and other forms, maybe some catch wrestling and whatnot? What if someone's going to be a pro wrestler and they didn't wrestle when they had the chance in school? Would they supplement what they're doing by taking those classes during the week or something?
I think it would help them, maybe. I mean, granted, pro wrestling and where you train particularly it makes a big difference, especially if you want to be a very fluid, say, chain wrestler, or it also depends on your influences. Granted, like many of my influences as far as professional wrestling goes, you look at like a Bret Hart, you look at Chris Benoit. I know,
hopefully not too much of an
not
inspiration.
too much, or the Owen Harts or
Ultimate Warrior.
Hey, I'm not gonna. Warrior's still to this day one of my favorite wrestlers. Period. But I'm not gonna do gorilla presses. But needless to say, like those guys that you thoroughly enjoy, or the Dean Malenkos, the Eddie Guerreros, the Rey Mysterios, all those sorts of people. You look at the style that they work or the fluidity in which they're in there with, you can tell there's some sort of athletic background there, and that helps. And then whether you are someone that's, even if you're a gymnast for that matter, or if you're someone who's just athletic in general, or did football, whatever, if you have some sort of sports background, I think that significantly helps you with wrestling, because you're able to either absorb hits very, very well, or you're able to be flexible and be able to rebound back from taking huge impactful bumps. Like, look at gymnasts, like, they flip and they hit these grounds, they can hit hard and they can rebound back just fine for the most part. Wrestling, for that matter, having a jiu-jitsu background, how to work off different things, it definitely wouldn't hurt if more people who get into professional wrestling were somewhat or some kind of athlete, because the more people you see come in here into a wrestling ring and find themselves who are out of shape in general, whether you're just skinny fat or just out of shape period, don't understand what conditioning is, what proper dieting, eating, health is important with this, because cardio alone is significant with professional wrestling. I don't care if you're a tree of a man standing in the middle of the ring, you still need to be able to go. You can swat everybody like flies, but you still need to be able to go, no matter what way you look at it.
How do you think One Man Gang would have taken to this advice?
You probably would think I'm a piece of shit, and probably would think that I don't know how to work, kid, and I wouldn't have to do that sort of stuff. But let's also face fact: One Man Gang in 1983 may get only so far in 2016.
Times have definitely changed, and everyone fills their own niche. I always like to describe pro wrestling as a variety show. Not every single person has to be a technical wrestler. No. But you didn't continue on with the amateur wrestling very much. What happened there?
I stopped in middle school. I decided that right about high school I needed to start like fine-tuning what I wanted to do more so, and spend more time on actually saving money
to get the hell out of Iowa.
To get the hell out of Iowa. Not necessarily. More so get out and find a wrestling school I wanted to go to. And there were a couple wrestling schools in Iowa that were ran by people that wouldn't necessarily, I want to say, didn't have any sort of credentials necessarily, but didn't stand out to me as people I would want to train with. So I looked up Steve Carino's school. I looked up the ROH school, CCW school. Like I looked up a lot, especially in the Northeast, because I'm like, you know what? That's where the hotbed of independent wrestling is. That's where people are looking at wrestlers for. I wanted to get out here.
Well, the ROH school, how long it had been around at this point?
They hadn't opened up yet.
Oh,
not quite
okay.
yet. Like I was just looking. I really started opening up to independence in probably 2001. I have to say. So ECW is dead at that point in time. You have CZW that's starting to come up the ranks, XPW, all those places come up the ranks and being somewhat significant to the independent scene. Ring of Honor had just started shortly about 2002.
Right.
Carino was running PWF out here, and I was like, well, I like Steve Carino, so let me look into his school. So I wanted to, I remember emailing him or IMing him about it. I was probably that annoying kid I couldn't stand to hear IMs from, but I definitely was. Sorry, Steve.
Instant messages. Wow, that
yes.
brings me back. I like to call, at least when it first started, phone texts.
Yeah.
Phone IMs.
Yeah.
Because it was the same idea.
Oh, it's the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing. And now you have Facebook Messenger, which is pretty much text messaging without having to pull up your person's cell phone number and annoy them that way instead. So
Now it's a whole other way to annoy them.
yes, it is.
We always like to joke about how young you are. At this point, you were out of high school or still in high school?
2002, I was in high school. I was probably just starting. 2001, 2002, I was 14 years old.
Okay.
14, 15.
Because you're one of these people that I guess grew up on Ring of Honor, so to speak. Like whenever Tyler Black or Seth Rollins now says that, it makes me feel old because I'm like, geez, Ring of Honor was starting up when, geez, I guess I was just in my early 20s, still into what was going on the indie scene at the time and everything. But then years later, these young guys are like, they grew up watching those VHS tapes of Joe and Punk and Low Key and whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, my era of people watching, like going back to like Tyler Black or Seth Rollins for that matter, he and I used to bump into each other at indie shows. We used to see each other at Ring of Honor shows for that matter. Just we're in the crowd. We knew each other. We talked to each other. Like we knew each other pretty well for that matter. And it did not hurt the fact that like once time progressed, like we wanted to go to our weight wrestling school once we became age to do so.
That's actually where I met him the first time because I did the tryout September 12th of 2004 and he had come out for that. And I saw his Bushido tattoo on his back, and I'm very much into samurai culture and everything, so we had a conversation about that, and then I guess he ended up going back to Iowa. Little did we know that one day he'd squash you in the Manhattan Center.
That's for damn sure. That is for damn sure.
But
that night was miserable anyway.
but I started seeing you at shows at this point. I know it was Chicago, Ridge.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you, I believe, in Connecticut. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us how that all happened, because you started going to Ring of Honor shows just to try and get your face seen. Like
more so, that's what it was. I was help. Well, let's take you to the very first Ring of Honor show I went to. Me and about 3 other of my good close buddies at the time. We went up to St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay, we're gonna go see our first Ring of Honor show. We were excited as all hell to do this.
Which one was this? Was this Danielson and Joe?
This was no. That was actually probably like a year or two later, I think.
Okay.
Joe was wrestling Homicide.
Okay.
And Punk was wrestling Danielson. Ring of Honor had duplicated our tickets.
That's so unlike them.
They duplicated our tickets, so we go up and we talk to Sid at the front, and
my buddy,
your buddy, and my dad.
Your dad, as he would eventually become known.
He will be.
You two blondes.
Boy. Then we ran into Carrie, and Carrie's like, "Here, I'm gonna help you out." So Carrie hooked us up with 4 seats in the corner of the arena.
That's where you belong.
Well, of course. But it was like up close, first row, so that we got upgraded our tickets, which was really cool.
Okay. Is this your buddies that you would go to Raw with?
Yes.
Who's wearing the Ultimo Dragon mask?
Yes. Which I'm sure you probably pulled up somewhere.
Oh, I've got it on the. I could bring it up right now.
I'm sure you could.
I'll make a still and post it on.
You also see me flipping off Randy Orton front and center as well, too.
Well, he deserves it.
Well, shortly after the show, we said thank you to Carrie for upgrading our tickets, and I had to let him know that I also do graphic design, which I showed him. I told him like I had done some work for Smart Mark Video doing CCW's VHS tapes and doing like their box art for
their covers.
So, yeah. And I was like, I would be interested in doing any other sort of graphic artwork, advertisements or whatever. He's like, well, here's my card. Email me some of your work. Let me look it over, and I'll see if it's something that we could consider. That's where things came into play. Like I remember Carrie sending me stuff like I need an advertisement for Wisconsin. I need an advertisement for a Chicago event, a Boston event, or whatever. And all of a sudden, Carrie's a big fan of these old style posters that look vintage.
He's got a lot of those in his house, doesn't he?
And so he wanted something akin to that, or what with some updated, pizzazz, I guess. So I'm like, all
now
right.
everybody does that, even to this day.
Well, yeah, but granted, it's nice. It looks so nice, a signature, cool, and old looking. So I started working on that, and that's where I've essentially got a job, like an early, side paying job into Ring of Honor, doing that sort of work. And then he hooked me up with Sal Hamoy and do some DVD covers early DVD covers for some FIP stuff, which didn't really necessarily pan out at the time, but then later ended up doing more DVD cover work once I started working for Ring of Honor. That's where pretty much how I carved my teeth, and that's how you saw me at shows. Like I would fly out to New Jersey.
You'd fly out?
Yeah, like I
Wow.
would come out, especially around the time frame. I would come out and see like I wanted to see third anniversary show, so I would come out and see that, or I would drive to Chicago with my friends, and we would see Ring of Honor there. So it's maybe every 3 months or so, I would come out and help you guys out, and that was also a way I felt like I may not be paying my dues with you guys necessarily by paying my tuition for wrestling school, but I wanted people to know like, hey, this kid is legit and he really wants to help out and he really wants to stick around and wants to be around. And I thought, hell, if I'm going to move out east too, maybe make some friends I'm going to get used to on the road, or at least become acquaintances with. So when it's on the road, I'll have people they'll count on me, I'll count on them, that sort of thing. And I thought that would fed well, and it did as time progressed. For you, I remember meeting you. You were extremely kind and welcoming. That's how I pretty much carved my way into Ring of Honor. And then shortly after that, when I had my tryout, I flew out to New Jersey for that, and then did my tryout that July of 2005.
I remember seeing you on the ring crew, loading things, setting up the lighting, and doing just whatever you could. I think the moment that we really bonded and we really became good friends, I don't know if you had moved out here just yet, but it was the Joe Kobashi show.
Mm-hmm. That's here.
And I was doing the ring crew that night. I don't remember what time in the morning, but it was every time you do ring crew, it's an all day and night affair. At least a 12-hour day. Mm-hmm. And especially when fucking Kenta Kobashi is coming in, like the biggest name that we've ever had by far, and one of the biggest names in Puroresu that there is, this was a big deal. And I was doing the ring crew early on. Later in the day, I did the spotlight for that show. And I hadn't eaten at all because it wasn't like blatantly said, but you always felt like you had to keep going and give your best, and don't leave
No
your
rest.
Yeah, don't leave your post and this and that. And I was up on the balcony with the spotlight, and I remember you came up at one point and asked if you could get me any food or anything. And I said, well, actually, yeah, there's a McDonald's right across the street. If you could get me this, that, and whatever, my usual. And then you came back and brought it to me, and I was so appreciative of that. I thought that was so kind of you to do, so nice. I really, really appreciated that. And now here we are today, I guess.
I was just trying to kiss your ass, that's all. I thought maybe if I got to know you really well, you can, put in a word to Gabe, and Gabe would push me after I first, graduated from the school, and I'd be like ROH world champion in 2 years.
Oh, please. Like, I'm going to talk to Gabe if I don't have to.
Totally bullshit.
So you're out here on the East Coast. You start training. At this point, Punk had left, and Austin Aries was the head trainer now.
Correct.
And I believe you were in the class with Ernie Osiris, Rhett Titus.
Those are separate classes, actually.
Oh, okay.
Rhett and Mitch Franklin at the time, they, or now Grizzly Redwood, they were in
The
Austin
second
Aries'
class.
first class. Aries' first class.
I had it backwards.
Third class to ever come out of the ROH school, for that matter. I think their class started in August and wrapped up in about January. My class overlapped. It was me and Ernie in there, and there was a few other guys that didn't succeed past that.
This is 2006?
2005. This is December 2005 when we started. We trained for a solid 5 months. We were Aries' second class and last class at the ROH school, which then transitioned into Danielson. Aries laid the foundation for my initial wrestling. He got our functional basis down. He got our basics, chain wrestling, some moves. Yeah, that's it. Like some stuff. Learn how to do some drop kicks, weave together chain wrestling, put together some moves here. You can put together spots in the ring. But he never seemed encouraging on the record. I didn't feel like he was very encouraging, at least the second class.
Well, not to cut you off, but what I remember is Punk, at least in the second class, apparently the first class had a different experience than I did in the rest of the guys. But the second class, he was not particularly interested. He was more focused on trying to get signed at that point. Yeah. be it by TNA or WWE.
Yep.
And especially in the last several months, I don't think he was even there.
Okay.
And Aries was coming in because he was going to take over and basically finished up
And I
that
heard
class.
I heard good stuff when the class were like Pelly and the Dempseys. When he stepped in, and helped out a lot in that time frame towards the transition phase. He was really on point with helping out that class and getting his very first class started too.
And I wasn't there for Aries' classes per se, but I remember his attitude was, I'm not going to be up your ass about every little thing. I'm not going to make you do 700 Hindu squats in a row and run around the building like Punk did or whatever. That's up to you. If you want to condition yourself right, if you want to get in good shape, I'm sure he would help you, but he's not going to babysit you and hold your hand for everything. I'm here to teach you how to wrestle. And I don't really know much beyond that. So go on and tell us how it was.
This is, again, from my experience, from how I felt. Maybe I was expecting a little more of a coaching mentality and, this is what we'll do, all these sorts of things. But even in the sense of like, there was time we were practicing drop kicks. At the time, I couldn't do one to save my life really, really well. So I remember being discouraged about it, and more so the mentality, or what I remember him saying was, if you can't do it, you'll probably never do it. Don't try it ever again.
Instead of let's work on it.
Let's keep on doing it. I know, granted, you may not be the best at it right now, but who knows how you'll be, 5 months from now or a year from now. Your drop kick might be the best thing you do. Who knows? There was no encouragement to keep trying until you perfect it or get better at it. And that is why when Danielson took over, I gravitated to his style a lot, because it was like, we're going to do the 500 squats. We're going to do the 5 minutes of jumping jacks. We're going to do all these conditioning things beforehand. And then we're going to get you in the ring and we're going to wrestle. And then we're going to work on all the things that you want to work on. And we're going to work on all the things that you are having troubles with, and we're gonna perfect that, and we're gonna work on these things, and we're gonna make you a better wrestler. And that's what I liked a lot about Danielson. And there's lots of other things that I liked about him too, as far as his personality and how he taught people, and how he more so nurtured the wrestler, or the trainee, for that matter. And that felt good, especially for someone myself who had literally uprooted my life 1,000+ miles away, had really no real friends, and I can relate to Brian in the sense, like, he just uprooted his entire life to come be a head trainer here. There was some commonality, and I felt like we had a minor bond there. I know we weren't best friends or anything, but he did a lot of nice things for myself at the time too.
Danielson, you would think, would get a lot of people in there based on his name and his reputation.
Correct.
The opposite happened. Attendance at the school wasn't good at all. And I think with every subsequent, at least until Delirious took over, tryout and class, there were less people. So that's less money for the school, less money for the company. Punk, the cult of personality, I always say, that he drew a lot of people.
He did.
And Aries, I think, is still one of the top 5 wrestlers ever in Ring of Honor. I think he's a great
I'm not taking anything away from him as a wrestler, period.
Right. But I'm saying that if I was trying to get into a wrestling school like the Ring of Honor Wrestling School, those are some great names to train under, you would think.
Absolutely.
But I think people were way too intimidated with Bryan Danielson.
And that I agree with you.
In the sense, like, oh my God, this is going to be like this hardcore
Japanese dojo style.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can handle this sort of thing. And I really honestly feel that was the way. And I also feel that was much the mentality even amongst the established students that didn't even come in to train with him. Pelly changed his work schedule so he could train. Chris, after work, myself after work, would train with Brian.
Well, it was easy for you because you just walked out the door.
And we're right there. But I don't know what was going on with these people's lives at the time. There's the Dempseys. I know Mitch was going back and forth to Maryland a lot. So, like, I know that's a huge expense. Ernie had to do some work for his family during the summertime. But there were so many guys that could have really taken advantage of Brian's constructive criticism and made themselves better in that time frame, and they didn't. And I know towards the very end, I know Rhett had come back to the school more often and was using the training center more. But unfortunately, during the most of the summer, like the peak periods of when Brian was there, most practices were just the three of us. Sometimes if, Pelly couldn't make it in, or I had something I had to do, or Chris was gone, it might be a 2-person class plus Brian. Or if something was really hit the fan, only one person was there, and I could tell like Brian felt defeated. He looked defeated.
Even without those people, though, there still should have been plenty of people filing in.
There should have been. There should have been. And granted, there were kids that would sign up for tryouts and wouldn't get through the tryout, and they wouldn't sign up either. And there was like maybe 5 here, or 3 there, or 4 there, or whatever it might be. But yeah, you would think, logically speaking, that you have the world champion of the company training at that school. You would think that would file in so many fans, for that matter. And again, it has to be the fact that they thought, oh, it's going to be Japanese dojo style. I'm going to have to do 500 Hindu squats and lion push-ups or whatever it might be to scare you. But what'd you expect if that's the case? Like, this is wrestling.
Part and parcel of the program.
Well, what was it? Ric Flair talks about, run around on
frozen tundra
and doing wheelbarrows up and down stairs and doing 500, 600, 700 squats, all for Vergania, and they're doing it in the freaking dead of winter. So let's call a spade a spade. The conditions aren't nearly that bad.
Right.
But simple fact that if you really want this bad enough, you'll take it seriously enough. So if you are going to condition yourself for this, then you better just get your ass fucking prepared for it. And that's a shame, because people could have really learned a lot from Brian. And I wish I could have learned a lot more, and my time frame to learn from him was only so much.
It should have been a huge success. Mm-hmm. You know how big a fan of Danielson I am, and I was. If I was going to train at that point, of course I'd want to train with him. Of course. I wouldn't want to train with some bum. And this is the guy who was coined the best in the world for a reason. Like, if I had my dream scenario, if I could have trained with any wrestler of my choice to learn the art, it would have been Bret Hart.
Yeah.
He is an artist. For back in that time frame, Kurt Angle, I suppose, if we're talking a mainstream name. But what's the best alternative that you have, not having those as options? It's Bryan Danielson. I always called him the best wrestler of our generation. So I'm just saying that in a disappointing way, because it should have been a lot bigger than it was. But I'm glad you got some stuff out of him while he was here, because he was only here for
6 months.
Yeah.
End of April, just before my very first match. And then he was out. I take that back. It was a little bit longer. He finished up a final battle, and then he went home afterwards. And that was it. But if you don't mind, I just want to quickly touch a little topic about Brian.
I mind everything you do.
He wrote his book about a year and a half ago, and he did actually mention that particular subject in his book.
What did he say about it?
Yeah, he mentioned that during the time frame when he moved out and he was supposed to be the head trainer at the ROH Wrestling Academy, that it wasn't a success, and he couldn't inspire anybody to train with him. And I know that I talked to Chris about this, or Hagedorn about this. It's a shame that he felt that he didn't inspire anybody to come train with him.
Right, and I don't think it was his fault at all.
No, it's not his fault, and it's a damn shame that he looked at it as like a failure in his career, because the truth is, like, Brian absolutely wasn't a failure, was a fantastic person to be around, was a great person to pick his brain about, or to ask really good questions, or put you in a good mood, or whatever it was. Like, it's a damn shame that he wasn't as successful as a trainer like he should have been. And from me, from Justin to Alex Payne, however you want to call me, what do you want to call me? I would like to say thank you to him through this podcast, because if it wasn't for him, and especially a lot of things at that time frame, like literally being alone out here, pretty much a lot of times depressed because I was the only person out here. I didn't have family out here. I had a very selective amount of friends. I didn't know who I could trust as friends or whatever. Brian would reached out, and he always had something goofy for me to try to do. Or there was like, hey, I remember there was this girl at GNC I wanted to hit on, and he would always give me tips and pointers about doing it at the time. And he's like, did you do it? Did you? And I came back with like, I got her number. He's like, all right, you're gonna call her? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna give her a call. Like he asked about these little things, and it was goofy, but he would ask about these little things.
Just trying to have
He
fun.
was trying to have fun. Or I remember him taking me out for my birthday. It was my first birthday out here. Like he did that. Like it was like he wanted to take me to a strip club for my birthday, which we were unsuccessful on completely.
We were at a strip club once.
Yes, we were.
I don't even mean you and me.
You and Brian. Yeah. Well, there you go. Brian, your strip club stories are still there to tell about to this day. But there was a time in the fall, just before he left, Gabe was asking, like, he wants to take a bunch of students down to FIP. He was like, all right, well, let's bring Pelly, let's bring Shane, let's bring Rhett, and let's bring Alex. And Gabe goes, you sure you want to bring Alex? And
Jesus.
And he's like,
everyone else is fine, but you.
He's like, or is he ready? And he goes, even if he isn't, he needs to learn. So why don't we bring him down? And he's like, okay. Like it was like a slap in the face. I felt I was training every single day at that point in time with Brian, and I felt like I was learning a lot faster than some of my other peers were. And that's the thing that kind of disappointed me. I'm like, okay, well, because Brian said that I'm ready, I'm going to go down to FIP and I'm going to do my damnedest that I possibly could and show that I'm worth a damn, even though I'm only 6 months green at that point.
You'd think his word would have been enough.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have said it if
he
he
saw
didn't
me
thought
every
you were
day
ready.
training and busting my ass and trying to get what I could for independent bookings, which is a completely different topic when it comes down to indie bookings and you're an ROH student. But moving on.
Well, at this point, you were also working in the office. How'd that come about and what were you doing?
Well, when I first moved out here, I was working at a Toys R Us, just trying to make, ends meet at that point in time.
You weren't looking for toys?
I wasn't looking for toys, no. Since I was close enough with the ROH office, Ross, Sid, they knew me very, very well, and they knew I had moved out here to start training here shortly. And Rich, who was their cameraman at the time, who was also working in the back office with them too.
It's his birthday today, by the way.
Is it? Well,
Yeah.
happy birthday, Rich Trapp.
Long past by the time people hear this, but
Yes.
happy birthday, Rich.
He had left, and they asked me if I wanted to come aboard. Obviously I wasn't making that much money working at Toys R Us, so there was an opportunity for me to commute a good ways away to work for the ROH office. And as soon as I heard him, like I fucking jumped at it. I was like, yes, let me do this.
Rich was the hard cam operator, and I took over for him. So then I started going on the road, and I was already working in the office there, so I didn't take up any more of the payroll or the spot, but that's where you slipped in. And so we ended up working together in the office every day.
Yes, we did.
Where were you at this point living?
I was in Pennsylvania. I was living in Easton.
Okay, so how long of a trip was that every day to the office?
You'd have to say anywhere from like an hour and 15 to hour and a half, depending if you were like bumper to bumper with like school traffic or not. If it was summer, you zip through in like an hour, it would be beautiful. And then sometimes it'd be, hour 15, hour 20, hour 30 minutes. I remember getting up early, 7 a.m., 6 a.m. or whatever, just to like get myself stirred up and having some breakfast and then get going from there. So that was an exhausting commute. 3 hours sometimes of the year. That sucked.
It would generally take me about a year. It would generally take me about an hour every day, more or less.
And you were coming from Manalapan at the time.
Yeah, it was 38.2 miles each way. So when people, I don't know about you, but when people hear that now, they're like, oh my God, they're not used to driving that long. But my dad actually, towards the end of his career before he had to retire early, he was driving into Pennsylvania too, but he had an hour and a half commute every day. So now driving an hour is nothing to me. I've driven out to Chicago, Toronto, North Carolina, Baltimore, all these other sort of places. And yeah, it's somewhat of a trip, but that really conditioned me. And I actually miss some of those drives, at least in the morning, because I'd stay up really late.
Yeah.
So I'd start crashing on the way home. Luckily, not literally.
Unlike myself.
Yeah. You're not a great driver at all.
It's got better.
But there were times where I'd wake up, I guess wake up is the right term, driving 80 miles an hour on the turnpike, because when you start dozing off, kind of like when you're in school,
yeah,
and your trapezius muscles relax and you pop up again, like, oh, and that's when you realize, oh yeah, I should be paying attention to driving.
I'm operating a 2,000-pound vehicle here. I don't want to go crashing into something, which on my half I definitely had done once or twice, but that's a totally different conversation.
That's why I'm never comfortable with you behind the wheel. Come with me to Binghamton. I don't know.
Okay, first off, have I ever not out while we were on that long of a trip? Absolutely not.
That's because I keep you awake. God damn it.
Thank
I
God.
have to. But I miss those trips in the morning because that's when I was my most creative. You know, when you're in the shower and your mind wanders and you relax and people start singing or whatever, that's when a lot of ideas for different creative things would come to me. I remember specifically where I was driving to the Ring of Honor office when a lot of ideas would pop in my head. So I do miss that. But working with you and Chris and Jimmy in the office every day, it's funny driving on the turnpike. You see all these guys in these suits and they try and drive in their better car faster than you because they are so elitist. Like, look at this guy.
Look at me in my BMW. I've got my shades on and it's freaking night outside. It's like, okay, asshole.
And they're wearing the button down and the tie and this and that. And I'm wearing my do-rag and Adidas pants and
Hey,
whatever.
don't make fun of me. That's what I wear now. That's when I wrestle.
But I'm just like, I'm working in an office too, motherfucker.
Yep. But at least you're getting to wear, everyday attire. You get to wear gym pants and a t-shirt, and you're driving into an office and you're working in a warehouse essentially from 9 to 5, editing or boxing up deliveries essentially. Instead, these guys are going pushing paper or they're on the computers hating their lives.
Well, how did you like it? Because you were just bringing me back there. Like, we listened to Howard Stern in the morning. We didn't have any windows, so whenever we'd have to go out and get the latest delivery of whatever, I'd make that joke like, sunlight. We had the wrestling ring next to the office. The four of us, we would just have a blast, I think, every day.
We had lots of good times in that office. As far as myself, I hated the commute. I hated the commute at least the first year and a half. I really, really did. Fortunately, I did move a little bit closer. I finally found some of my family out east, my cousins, and I felt awkward about reaching out to them at the time because I really hadn't really seen them in over 10 years. So it'd be like, hey, cuz, I know you have a life out here, but thank goodness they open their arms to me and they'll eventually let me move in with them and whatnot, which helped a lot as far as my stress levels go and mild amount of depression that I was kind of, I think, I was going through too at the time. But it cut my commute by half an hour at least.
And what sucked back then is the gas prices now. Plus, I have a much more fuel efficient car now, so driving is so much cheaper.
Dude, I remember my first year out here. I remember watching the gas prices go from $1.49 or some shit like that upwards to $2 by maybe February of 2006, and then by that summer it's $2.50, and then be like, how much you spending in gas? How much you spending in gas? Remember, that's something we would talk about once in a while.
Plus tolls.
God, well, you had tolls. I didn't have tolls.
Oh, wow.
I was very fortunate. I took routes that did not get me on the Northeast Extension or the Turnpike at all. I was very, very, very fortunate. And even then, once I cut my commute down by 30 minutes, I was still saving at least a fraction of the money that I was spending at the time frame.
I drove out to Chicago last year. Back then, I was driving I think it was a 96 Honda Civic. And now it's so much more fuel efficient. Driving out to Chicago, this is round trip, mind you. It was over 800 miles, I think, each way. I spent $144 on a round trip on gas.
That's not bad.
That's absurd. It's great.
Yeah,
because back in the day, filling up the car, it was $50.
Yeah. No, that's true. That is true. Especially you go back 5 years ago when gas prices were eking up to $4 a gallon or $5 a gallon, depending on where you're at. And then all of a sudden you watch that tank meter go up. Oh, motherfucker, you got to be kidding me. Now it's $60. That's embarrassing. That's the hardships of being a professional wrestler on the road, is that gas prices also kill the amount of money the promoter will want to dish out to you. But that's, again, another topic that we'll probably touch upon eventually.
Do you remember any of our fights?
Yeah, I remember throwing a pin at you.
Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. You were on the phone with a customer, I think.
And you were making obscene noises, and I was getting really pissed.
Not obscene. I was just making goofy noises the whole time. And then you stood up. You were at the desk across from me, and you threw a pen at me, but it hit me directly on the eyeball. And I was so pissed. I was this close to picking up the monitor and throwing it at you. I was hot. I was so pissed.
I do remember. I remember that distinctly. I remember Chris, his eyes go, what the fuck? And I remember Jimmy's there writing.
Because you almost took out my eye. I was so pissed.
But still, again, I it's the visual of me seeing what's going behind you. I see Chris's eyes light up, like, what the fuck just happened there? And then Jimmy, he's got his baseball cap on and he's hunched over and he's writing his stuff. He just looks over and just gives like the stink eye to us as far as us fighting. And he's like, what the fuck, you kids? Like, ridiculous. But no, you're pissed. I was pissed. I was trying to handle a customer on the phone. Like, so like, to me, I'm like, God, great. This guy on the phone probably thinks we're fucking around back here or making fun of the dude over the phone or whatever it might possibly be while I'm trying to talk and I can't get that out because I have someone making some sort of jackass noise in front of me. So I'm like, well, fuck this shit. I'm going to grab a pen. I'm going to throw it at your table just to stop you, but I end up bombing you nearly in the face or catch you in the face.
In the eye. That's the big key point of it. It wasn't like it hit me in the chest or
well,
hit
if I would have poked your eye out, you would have had a career as a pirate. So it all works out.
But that's the sort of relationship we would have. Sometimes we get in some pretty big fights. But aside from that, you were
over the most insignificant things.
Well, over the most stupid thing. But it was also, you were the contrarian. You just had to disagree with everything I said to the point of utter annoyance. And that's what's led to this relationship now where we curse each other out and call each other the worst names and wish the worst thing upon each other. Now everyone knows the type of relationship I have with my friends. They're trolls.
Be honest. Okay, trolling to you or someone happens to have a difference of opinion or different way they view something, so therefore you will fight us on it, i.e. the World Heavyweight Championship, which we can't bring that up right now because there's another piece to this puzzle that is not here to take defense. So therefore, when and if the time comes, you decide to bring Shane Hagedorn on the show and we can do a 3-person podcast, we can dispute the World Heavyweight Championship. But until then, we'll keep moving on with this.
There is no dispute. I'm right. You're wrong.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
WWE said so. So, I mean,
what day is it and what hour is it?
Which venue, the website, exactly. The DVD, the TV, whichever.
Which history you're looking at.
They change their mind too often.
Yes, and just mind you, despite being a professional wrestler, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not a fan of professional wrestling or embarrassed to say that I'm a fan of professional wrestling. So yes, we'll make plenty of arguments about trivia as far as wrestling goes, and I think that goes par for the course, especially when you're on the road. You have to do this sort of thing too.
I mean, stuff like, was it one of the ROH tag title designs or something with a tag title? And I said it looks just like the old WCW tag title. The design was very, very, very similar, and you go, no, it doesn't.
I think you were talking about, I think you mentioned WWF tag team titles. The second version or third version at that point in time of the ROH tag titles had the little Roman columns on it that looked like the WWF tag team belts from like the 80s, 90s. And
so you admit it. Back in the day,
well,
it was...
There's this, mind you, everybody, that there's these little columns on there that were maybe a derivative of that belt, but the entire shape, look, and everything else was not even close.
Oh, for Christ's sakes. It looked exactly
Eric
like
sees
it.
He's like, that's the WWF World Tag Team titles. They're just copying it. And I'm just like, absolutely fucking not. You gotta be kidding me. There's a couple little pillars here that makes it look like that. Absolutely not, Eric.
You say that with a smile on your face because you know you're making that all up.
Because I know it's the truth. And if I could dial up Hagedorn right now, I'd have him to have the same argument with you.
You're making this all up. Because they looked almost exactly the same except for maybe like a minor little detail.
That one was more sharp horned looking.
And that's enough for Justin to go, oh, they don't look anything alike. They look nothing alike.
This is Eric trying to make an argument yet again, as per usual.
Well, let's continue the arguing next time. Where can we keep up with your annoyances? Where can we find you on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
Search Alex Payne. I think it's alex.payne.71 because Facebook happens to just assign you a page number after a certain amount of years.
So we can't like you.
No, there's no Alex Payne page itself as far as like a fan page, and therefore I don't want people to like me either. Sorry.
Or the heel.
They're Twitter Psycho Payne.
So what's the best place to find out where you're going to wrestle next?
Well, next wrestling event I have will be at Excite Wrestling in Binghamton. On that event, Johnny Mundo or Johnny Nitro, however you want to call him now, will be on the event. So that's in Binghamton, New York on July 30th. And then there will be events for Boardwalk Entertainment July 28th, August 11th, and August 18th.
18th.
We haven't even gotten to your wrestling career yet, really.
Damn.
So you want to come back and talk about that?
Hell yeah, why not?
And before we sign off, I just wanted to say that as much as we've gotten on each other's nerves over the years and at each other's throat, you've also been one of my dearest friends, especially the last few years. Even with Superstorm Sandy, I remember you coming in and helping out. This tree had fallen from our yard into the neighbors. You helped me and my dad out with that. And especially when my dad died, you were right there. I just wanted to let you know that I love you. I appreciate that. And I hate your guts.
Feelings mutual, you prick.
Don't you love hearing all the various ways that my friends come up with to excuse messing with me? Alex Payne will be back, and in the meantime, I hope you check out a lot of his matches that I've uploaded on the Wrestling Roundtable's YouTube account. There's plenty there, and if you want to see him wrestle in person, he will be at Excite Wrestling's Saturday Night Delight, Saturday, July 30th at the American Legion Post 80 in Binghamton, New York. You can get tickets at excitewrestling.com. That's the letter X, CITE wrestling.com. And if you go out to see him wrestle live, boo him for me. Next week, I will have a few words with another one of my best friends, Lawrence Haber, one of the founding fathers of the Wrestling Roundtable. He was on the first episode of A Few Words, and he'll be back now for a one-on-one. We're going to talk about pro wrestling, his music, lots of things, but that's next week. Later this week, I'll be flying out to Las Vegas for UFC 200. I'm really excited about that. The biggest card in UFC history. I hope you enjoy it, as I'm sure I will. You are now listening to my favorite track from Lawrence's album Anxiety Log, Sweet Relief, featuring Melissa Criscuolo. I really love this song. The album is available on Spotify, CD Baby, iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon. Follow Lawrence's Instagram at Lawrence Haber Music. I hope you enjoyed the fireworks. Bye.
Trying to
know he's into this sort of stuff. So I asked him how his body was feeling, and he said that he was feeling pretty good. You had mentioned when you were 13, 14 or whatever.
The mat, and he would